Hey, working moms. I have not one, but two clients joining me on the podcast today talking about all things related to leaning into your career while balancing life. They talk about the importance of having an identity outside of work and believing in who you are and what you offer, and the importance of having tools and practices to intentionally and proactively have a positive mindset. We as women are often told to hide our emotions. And both Katie and Allie speak to how important it was for them to learn how to give space for what they're feeling so that they can ultimately let it go and be more productive at work and present at home. This was such a fun conversation with two amazing women. You are going to feel right at home as you listen to us discuss their coaching journey. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Hey friends, before we get into today's episode, I want to let you in on a little secret. My Black Friday holiday special is ready early. I've never before offered anything like this, and I was so excited to get it into your hands, I had to open it up immediately. It's called Voxer Coaching. Essentially, it will be like you having me as your coach in your back pocket to offer support, answer questions, give guidance and strategies, all individualized and when you need it. It's on-demand coaching through an app called Voxer. And when you sign up, you'll have access to me for a whole month. And here's the best part. The price is only $3.99. Yep, it's my lowest offer ever. Here's how it works. After you sign up, you will be directed to download the Voxer app. You'll send me a quick message and we'll start our conversation with a discussion around your 2025 goals. What do you want to be different next year? What do you want to focus on? What would a successful 2025 look like to you? Together, we'll answer these questions and then spend the next month creating a plan for how you're going to achieve it. You can message me every day when you feel stuck or you need help through a challenging situation, and I will be there to coach you and offer tools to make sure you keep moving forward. There's a limited amount of spots at this low price of $399. So if you want me in your back pocket supporting you for a whole month toward your 2025 goals, stop right now and click on the link in the show notes to sign up. This is going to be so fun. I cannot wait to support you through the holidays and into 2025. Are you ready? I am too. All right, working moms, let's get into the next episode. All right. Hello, working moms. I am so excited for today's episode. For the first time ever, I'm actually having multiple guests at the same time. This is so exciting. I have Allie and Katie with me on the podcast. They are clients that just recently ended 6 months of coaching with me. They work at the same company. This was actually an employer-sponsored coaching experience. So their employer brought me in, and we'll talk a little bit about what they do in a moment, but they brought me in to coach these two amazing women, a couple of other women leaders in their company. And I asked them to come on the episode because I thought it would be fun to have a three-way conversation around what their coaching experience was like and some of their particular struggles with being a working mom. And so I'm just delighted to have them here. So thank you, Allie. Thank you, Katie, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So just to get us a little bit started, tell us each about yourselves, just how many kids you have, a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get started. So why don't we start with you, Katie?
Sure. Hi, I'm Katie. I have two kids. My daughter is 9 and my son is almost 13. So nearing those teenage years. And I am an account manager at an advertising agency in Des Moines, Iowa. And I've worked at this agency my entire career. So interned with them when I was going to school and accepted a full-time position after I graduated. So really grew up or have grown up at the same agency my entire career.
I love it. So good. All right. How about you, Allie?
Well, my story is actually quite similar to Katie's. I, like you said, work at the same agency, and I actually started as an intern as well. So right after I graduated from college, graduate intern there, and then I actually reported to Katie and got hired on full-time that same summer and have been there ever since, so 17 years. I have a similar role, account service for some of our grocery and health clients. And I guess I also have four kids. So that's where things are a little different than Katie. I have 14, 12, 10, and 6. So they keep me extremely busy as well.
Oh my gosh. Do you have to stop and think about that sometimes? Like, what are their ages again? Did any of them like
A
turn?
little bit.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh,
and we
it's
just
so
had
good.
2 birthdays. And so I'm like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
how old are they now? So,
Yeah, which one is which and whose birthdays are when. Yeah, for sure. I love
Yes.
it. So good.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to have you here. I actually love that your stories have some similarities to them, in the ways that you've been in, I've actually just been recently thinking about how like work shifts decade to decade for us, in our careers, just generally speaking. Like we tend to go through about 4-ish to 5 decades of work, right? Somewhere in the middle of there. And like our first decade is a little bit different than our second decade and third decade and so forth, and kind of what evolves. But most of us start having kids somewhere between the end of our first decade of work and into our second decade of work, and so both of you having been there for 17 years, both of you said 17 years, right?
I think you're 18.
I'm nearing 20.
Oh, you're
Almost
nearing 20.
there.
Oh my gosh. I know. But so you both have had kids at this company. You both have experienced, your career, the growth in your career at this company. And so it's so fun that you both have that experience, which is why I think this is going to be such a powerful conversation as we talk about what it's like to be a working mom. Both of you also work with clients. And I think there's something to be said about being in a billable hour type of role that has a bit of a different demand and kind of a different mindset to it when we start talking about how to kind of balance life with a billable hour type of job. And there's some unique challenges to that as well. And bet that will come up as we talk about it as well. So let me just get started with talking about, when the opportunity for coaching was presented to you, and I want to hear a little bit about what some of your thoughts were in terms of why you kind of decided to engage with coaching, and particularly a coach like me, and what you were sort of hoping to get out of the experience.
So, just being at the agency for nearly 2 decades, I was looking for a change, like looking for a new move within the agency just to grow professionally. So when this coaching opportunity was presented to me, it was, something that I figured would help, guide me through that process and that growth and gaining the confidence to put myself out there and apply for a position that would be a step up from what I was doing. But all the while, considering how that would balance out with, the family family time that I want to have, and, but also growing professionally. So as any mom knows, you have those internal struggles of, do I want to advance in my career, knowing that I'm going to have to invest more time with work, most likely, to make that jump, and just how, that will jive with my family dynamic. So,
Yeah, I love that. How about for you, Allie?
Yeah, when this opportunity came up, it was a no-brainer. I was like, yes, this is awesome. Yes, I would love to do this. But I think I didn't quite know what to expect either. I was, after it was, yeah, sounds good. But then it was like, what does this even mean? What's even possible? And so I, started listening to some of your podcasts ahead of even meeting with you, and started to realize this could be even broader, I think, than we think it is. But I would say, in a similar position as Katie, as, I have had different points in my career too, where kind of lean out, kind of lean in, and felt like I was in a position where I was ready to kind of lean back in when the kids are a little bit older, can kind of focus back on the career. But how do you do that when there are so many demands at the ages that the kids are at, when they need you in different ways than when they were little, and how to balance that and be available to them? And so that was definitely a big goal of mine going into it. But I think even more broadly, some of like the emotional management was really key that I maybe didn't even realize that I necessarily needed, but was extremely helpful as we went through that process, and just kind of like being even more in touch with my emotions and feelings and as they relate to the work that I do, because it is so personal. And it's so, when you talk about, being with clients and all of that, so just being able to kind of keep things a little bit more steady as opposed to so up and down as it relates to emotions. So that was also really positive.
Yeah, I love that. Let's chat about that for a moment here, because I think that roller coaster is so common for all of us, right? And that could be everything from guilt from just working or whatever is going on, to guilt to not being available to your clients in a way that you want, to just the constant dynamic of having to prioritize and what to prioritize. And when you inevitably prioritize one thing, you're not prioritizing something else. And then there's feelings that come with all of that, feelings of frustration, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of failure, feelings, there's all the feelings. And so we all experience these feelings. And I think the idea of the ups and downs, like I like to think about it like a roller coaster. It is a little bit of a roller coaster for sure. And so I'm curious, as we started to really talk about that roller coaster, what you started to learn about your emotions and how they were playing a part in either, the imbalance that you were feeling, or whatever it was you were feeling as we started and then as we got into it. So,
yeah. And a couple things come to mind with that. But I think what I've always felt, or I don't want to say like been taught previously, but was just like, if you're focused at home, you're letting someone down at work. And if you're focused at work, you're letting someone down at home. And you kind of alluded to that too. But I think kind of just trying to separate myself from that a little bit, but along those lines, couple things. The I am enough and I am doing enough. That was something we had talked about really early on, and I still say that to myself nearly every day.
I love that.
It helps just validate that when you do feel like I'm not doing enough, I'm never going to get to the end of this, whatever. I am enough and I am doing enough. And I think that is helpful both at home and at work. And because those two things just go so closely together.
Yeah.
But another thought on that too, that you and I had spent a lot of time on too, was this idea too, that feelings are just ideas that our brain is giving us, and they're helpful in certain ways, but just like separating myself from them a little bit and saying, okay, these are some thoughts. That's my brain's job, is to offer these feelings to me, and they might be trying to protect me from something or show me something, but I don't have to be ruled by those feelings or emotions. And so just being able to separate that and just to think about it that way, kind of acknowledge those feelings when they come up, but know that, just be able to look at them a little more subjectively. It was an idea that I had never had before. So I really enjoyed it.
When you started to learn about separating yourself from that, what was the positive impact of being able to separate your emotions and tell yourself something different and not label everything as bad and all of that kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. I think it helped level out that roller coaster a little bit. It led that I wasn't just so up and down and ruled by every, email or thing that came and went, that it was just, okay, this is a feeling. What is this feeling all about? And just kind of be able to move past it more quickly. So, but also not pushing it down, it's like giving it its moment to feel it and acknowledge it. And I was even just talking about it the other day, and we haven't been in coaching for a few months now. So it's something, those are the couple things that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I love that. And I know for you, Katie, they're very similarly, like I'm doing enough was a big one for you, I'm curious, is what's going through your head as you're hearing her talk about some of this?
Yeah. Similar to Allie, before coaching, I would have those negative self-talk moments, and I would just try to tamp those down, push them away, like, don't think that way, instead of embracing it. And today I'm more, open to feeling those emotions, letting those emotions have some time and have some space rather than just trying to push them away. So it's, really learning, why am I having these feelings of self-doubt, or not being capable of doing something that I'm probably fully capable of doing, but just letting that sit with me instead of ignoring it. So embracing that is something that I've changed, just in the way that I think. So it's helped a
Yeah.
lot.
Which I think there's like a stigma, right, for women and emotions, right? That we're not, somehow our emotions are bad to bring into the workplace. And that in some, whether we've ever been told that or not, like there's just this idea that women are more emotional and that that's a problem somehow, particularly when it comes to those emotions being displayed at work, right? And the idea that all emotions are okay, and that actually giving them space is more effective than pushing them away or pushing them down. Like that alone feels, mind blowing for a lot of people, right? It just is so opposite of what we're told as women and what would make us successful. So I'm curious, how do you relate some of this to success, like being able to actually name those feelings, give those feelings some space? How have you found it to be helpful in terms of your success, however we want to label success at this point in this moment in life?
Yeah. So just, giving more space for those emotions, more time. I then find myself giving more affirmations, internally. So I'm, instead of thinking that I can't do something, I think of the reasons why I can do something and, how I've proven to myself that I am capable. So I think success comes from, giving yourself those affirmations and getting the confidence from those affirmations to be able to accomplish what, you're trying to set out to do. So it's, just a good balance of hearing those emotions, but then, pivoting to the affirmations and giving yourself the confidence that you can do it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, that confidence that comes with it. And confidence, I think, looks a lot of different ways, but that was the main word that came to my mind too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fascinating that feeling emotions can actually produce confidence. But it's like feeling emotions of failure, feeling emotions of self-doubt, feeling emotions of, I don't know, these big inadequacy, or not enoughness, right, as we might describe it. Those are big feelings that happen all the day, for all of us at various times of the day for various reasons. And so what we're kind of saying is when we actually give space for those emotions and we don't stuff them inside, then we kind of like process our way through them. Then we give space for other emotions to come in, and we have the ability to then pivot into, more positive feeling emotions like confidence and so forth. Because when you realize that all of those feelings and thoughts aren't really true, they're not factual, they're just feelings and emotions that our body kind of feels and thinks, right? That we don't have to label them much, then it kind of gives us room to say, well, what else would I rather feel or think about myself in this moment? It creates a snowball effect of like, oh, I get to actually think and feel on purpose if I want to. I can cultivate that, I know for both of you, kind of hearing what we'll call this like negative self-talk, just for the sake of this conversation. I always kind of hesitate to label something as negative or positive. Everything's kind of neutral. All feelings are neutral, right? So I kind of come as a coach, I come from that perspective, but yet the negative self-talk is that internal kind of doubt that tends to bring us down, right? And kind of hold us back or suppress us in some way. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about that. But both of you said that was a piece of this. And I'm not sure if I'm curious if either one of you would have said that you had a talk track of negative self-talk, or actually it was through some of our conversation that you realized how hard you were on yourself and what that experience was like.
I personally don't think that I realized it until we started working through it. And then it was like, oh yeah, okay, there is something here, that there is definitely this element of negative self-talk. And I think some of it came from what also helped me work through some of that was the work that we did with like our identity work and just, I felt like that really tied in that like, I am more than just these thoughts in my head, and I am more than just these negative things. And so all of that kind of clicked as a big puzzle for me. But no, I would say I didn't realize I had such that negative self-talk, but going through all of the different affirmations with you and just going back to that idea of I am enough and I am doing enough, and all of those other kind of positive affirmations that we worked through together that tied back to who I am and my identity, and just all of that tied together, I think helped kind of put that puzzle together that, yeah, okay, what I'm thinking is really not helpful. And so how can we help change those things and just change that ongoing narrative in our heads that no, we didn't realize was that underlying track, and so changing that.
Did you think when it comes to like balancing life and 4 kids and your career, and you said that you really wanted to lean in, and that was a piece of our time together as well. Did you have an idea of what was kind of holding you back or kind of keeping you out of balance before? I mean, now we've understand that a lot of it was internal, right? It was the internal dialogue that was going on that was actually holding you back. But did you think it was other things?
I don't know. I guess I don't know for sure how to answer that one, but I guess I would have thought that it was probably more like external things, or very tangible things like I don't have enough time to do this, or just not being able to balance all the things, or having it just be more things that were outside of my control.
My clients always messaging me late at night.
Exactly.
I mean, that's,
yeah, not having all things that were outside of my control, whereas this was able to shift it to this is within my control, and this is how I'm going to approach these things, with kind of a different lens now. So yeah, I think that it was able to shift that, which goes back to some of that confidence to be able to make those decisions in that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're shaking your head, Katie. What are some of your thoughts as you're hearing Allie talk?
Yeah. And I think that, just relating it back to work, a lot of those, I'll just say intrusive thoughts of the clients are overwhelming me. The work is overwhelming. How am I going to make this deadline? The affirmations that you give yourself of, this to-do list is never going to be done. It's always going to be there. So one thing, Rebecca, that you said that's really stuck with me is instead of looking at what you didn't get done today, look at what you did accomplish. And, that just has really shifted my mindset of, instead of thinking about, oh, this is going to take me, an hour to get done. It's like, nope, I have a half-hour time frame right now. I'm just going to get it done to the best of my ability within that time that I have. So it's also just really just thinking about my day differently and the work that I'm doing, and not getting as frazzled and feel out of control based on Allie's point of those external factors that I don't have any control over. But I do have control over how the mindset that I'm in and the way that I'm thinking about what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is all like happening to me. That's, I think, a really common belief that we all have, right? Like, this is my time. I don't have control over my time. There's too much to do. There's not enough time. Like, it's too busy. I can't get it all done. And it has this feeling of like life on the outside is sort of happening to you, and you need life on the outside to be a certain way in order to feel good or be able to get everything done or whatnot. But recognizing like all of that, I mean, that's kind of the life of a working mom, right? There's multiple schedules to juggle always. There's competing priorities sort of always. There's always a long to-do list. Like, if we stop focusing on needing those things to be any different, like now, and we can still manage our time differently, be more productive, feel better about our work, like then what can we actually control, right? And we control how we think about things, and we control how we respond to things, right? And a lot of that just comes from just the way we think about it. I like to give the visual sometimes to clients who really struggle with like the to-do list. It's like my to-do list is always really long. It's like, well, let's just assume your to-do list is always a page long. Like you take 5 things off of the list today, well, 5 things magically just went on it. Like it never, literally never visualize it going any shorter. It's always going to be that long. Now how are we going to manage it, right? How are we going to think about it differently so that you actually feel productive and satisfied at the end of the day, which is what you're saying, Katie, was so big for you is getting to the end of the day and saying, I actually accomplished a lot. I don't have to keep working. I can be done. I love that. And we all actually have that. We all have had that experience, not through mindset, but just because we know what it's like to like get to the end of the day, having finally finished that project or like that big presentation or big meeting or whatever it is. It's finally done. You've been working towards it and you're like, whoo, like it's done. I'm good. We can get to the end of that day and like allow ourselves to really shut down because we feel so good about something being done and our work in it. And it's like, it's success. And we just kind of like go, I deserve this. I don't need to keep working. I don't need to keep doing other things. That we have circumstances in life where that's really easy. And now we're just learning how to do that on demand. Like every day you just get to decide that all the work that you did was impactful and meaningful and it was enough and you can feel satisfied and you can feel that sense of pride and you don't have to keep working because of it, right? You could just let yourself not through just the power of the way you think about it. So earlier, Allie, you'd mentioned like our identity work and I talk about that as our compass, right? With all my clients, I help them through values, identity, and purpose. That's what I call your compass. And the point of all of that is to help your like conscious mind, like put some language to who you really are, like today in this season of life as a working mom. And then we obviously use some of that later, not just for affirmations and self-talk and things like that, but we use it to help guide decisions and things like that, right? So Allie, you mentioned it. I'm curious, what was really impactful about that work for you?
Yeah, it was something that I hadn't ever done before, but felt like, okay, I probably know the answers to this. But putting the actual words to it and working through the process with you was just really helpful to understand who I am, especially outside of my job. And I think that was a really big challenge for me because I've been at this same place for so long and have worked with so many of the same people, the same clients, the same coworkers, everybody at the same time for so much of my life. I think that all of it just got really muddy and intertwined. And so being able to say that I am more than the work that I do, which I think I inherently know that's not, necessarily something that, but being able to say I am more than this work and just take a step outside of it has helped me just really personally understand that that's really important, I guess. And it doesn't change who I am as someone at work. I think, with our employer helping sponsor this, that it's actually made me a better employee as well. The understanding that what I'm doing is important, but also, yes, I am more than this work that I do too, because otherwise it's harder to separate yourself and have that work-life balance, I think, when it feels like everything focuses around all of the work. So,
yeah. And I love that statement, that the idea that actually knowing that you are a human and you have value and you are somebody outside of work actually makes you a better employee. Like that's a pretty weighted statement, actually, I think, on some level, because and to say that to your boss ultimately, right? Because oftentimes we think that we need them to think that we're all into our job and it's the most important thing in our life, and then that's actually what is making us successful, or it's going to make us successful in their eyes, and then they're going to see that we're all in, and like those are kind of the mentality we sort of have when we think about that. But the opposite is sort of true, is what you're saying. So Katie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I found the process to be challenging, having to do that self-reflection. Like Allie, it was something that I had never spent a lot of time doing. So it was a really good exercise for me just to, think about what what do I value beyond work and how can I bring those values into the work that I'm doing, in managing people at the agency. I think that it's most reflected in how I help grow other team members and just how I show up to work every day. I want to make sure that I'm staying true to myself. And it was just a really good exercise to, hold myself accountable to say, like, is this something that aligns with my overall values now that I have a better idea of what those are? So,
Yeah. Yeah. I the image that just went through my mind is like you go on a vacation and assuming that you were off vacation, you come back to work with like a new energy, right? It's like you're ready to
mhm.
go, you feel refreshed, you could jump in, your mind it can be more strategic, you could prioritize better, right? It's because it's been rested and so forth. And there's kind of this it's like the same idea except on a daily basis, right? When you have a life outside of work and you see yourself not just through the lens of being a worker, but you become more than that and you allow yourself then to have a life that's more than that and you kind of go all into that as well, you show up differently when you engage back in work. Like work becomes something that becomes more exciting, invigorating. You have better ideas. Your mind is able to like think about it. It gets fatigued if if you're in a constant state of only thinking about work. That's a very fatiguing place for our brain to be constantly, right? We need breaks, we need rest, we need sleep, but we need to actually like not have time in our day that we're not thinking about things related to our job in order to re-engage in it at a much higher level, right? And so both of you are saying that you experienced that on in some degree, and so I love that. So we've talked recap a little bit. We've talked here about like some of the internal talk that goes on and how that's had an effect. We kind of talk a little bit about identity and like values and how those things have played out. We've talked a little bit about confidence, but I'd love to circle back to that a little bit and curious about how you would say your confidence shifted over the course of the coaching experience.
So, one thing that I found really valuable was doing some visualization exercises. And this was, going into a big presentation, starting with the end in mind. So, visualizing how at the once that presentation was over, how it was received, what was the conversation. So thinking about that before going into the presentations just really put me in a better frame of mind to give me the confidence to go in with the attitude that I know this content better than anyone else in the room. I'm the expert at what I'm presenting, and just going in with this positive outlook that it's going to go great and this is why, just really helped me give me the confidence to go into those situations. I was more assured of myself and just not as nervous or caught up in over rehearsing. That was the other thing that I've learned through coaching, is that I could over rehearse too much most of the time. So not doing that. And I felt like my presentation skills improved because of that too, because I wasn't trying to memorize things. I was just, going over the content instead of rehearsing a script.
You actually have a great story related to that. I feel like talking about this big presentation, I'm wondering if you might share it a little bit because I think you're right. We kind of think of confidence as being something external a little bit, like it shows in skill set, it shows in knowledge, right? Like, and so it shows in preparation. You're going to feel more confident if you are 110% prepared, right? There's kind of this equation on some level that we think to that, and I kind of challenged you on that, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, share a little bit about that moment, that experience.
Yeah. So there were several of them. So I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the same one as you, Rebecca.
It's all right, pick one.
Yeah. So there was a presentation that I was giving on some, concepts that I hadn't presented on a lot in the past. And I, told myself that after 3 p.m. the day before the presentation, I was done practicing. And I, had like some meditation time before the presentation just to think about.
Hold on. Let's just be clear. Like I sort of told you that. That you weren't gonna prepare anymore because it came through our conversation where I was like, hold on, are you gonna, what else are you gonna do tonight? And you were like, well, I'm gonna log back on and I'm gonna go over those notes again and I'm gonna make sure I read through this one more time and then I'll probably do it one more time before, the presentation. Like you were telling me how you were gonna prepare and I remember I was like, hold on, Katie, I'm gonna challenge you on that one, that you probably have done enough of that. And I remember you came back, you were like, well, I've always been told that, being prepared is like, I can't even remember how it was framed. It was like you put in 110, you're not prepared unless you're 110% prepared. I'm like, oh, really? Is that true? How is that going to play out if that's really true? So I challenged you to stop and you did.
And I held to that and the presentation went great. And I was just blown away that I don't need to over prepare and I just need to go into it thinking about how the end will be and how positive that experience will have gone. And that just has helped me a lot.
So good. I love it. Yeah, the visualization was something that came up, I think, particularly for you. I don't remember, Allie, if we did much of that, but I know for you, Katie.
We had a couple of visualization times, which I think a lot of mine were really around feelings, though, because we spent a lot of time on that. But, just as some feelings like overwhelm was one I remember that came up. And so we did a whole exercise on visualizing how that was kind of playing out in my body and how to kind of move past that. And so that was where ours focused on. And it is helpful. I would say I've actually also implemented more meditation time because of that, just realizing how helpful it is for our bodies and all of the stress that we are under. And so,
yeah, definitely. The mind actually can't, and there's a lot of research that shows this, like the mind actually doesn't differentiate all that much between something that we visualize in our mind and then something that we actually do, like an actual experience, right? And so the idea of, for you, in your case, Katie, is we're talking about preparing for presentations and like literally visualizing getting in front of the screen or being in front of the client and actually going through the whole thing, getting to the end and it going really well. And there'd be smiles on everybody's faces, right? And that you feel proud and like you being able to see that ahead of time is your body and your brain kind of latch onto that and kind of can almost recreate that if you allow yourself to kind of go there and see all of that ahead of time. Your body starts to feel all those feelings ahead of time. And when we feel all those feelings, then we're able to kind of like go in with that energy of like, I'm already successful. I've already visualized myself being successful. So it has this like momentum to it, right? That really builds on it, which is one of the reasons why it's super effective. And then I think for you, Allie, as we're talking about some of those visualizations of in your body, there's an ability to like see it there, see it even leave sometimes. Like I know for me, sometimes I'll like experience that overwhelm or that anxiety and I'll give it a little space and then I'll kind of like watch it go and take it out of my body. And that experience is almost feels it's like magic almost, how it just kind of leaves you right through your mind just because you see it in your mind. It's so powerful. And again, another way that we're just giving some space. We're not fighting emotions. We're emotional beings and we're just giving some space for all of these things, either to feel these things on purpose or to kind of let go of whatever feelings happen to be there.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I have never meditated before this practice was introduced by you, Rebecca. So I'm the type that's just, go, 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 no naps, just like, I don't have time for that.
Don't eat lunch. Lunch is, right. Your computer has all the crumbs on it.
Yes, exactly. So it was challenging for me at first. It wasn't something that just came second nature, but now that I've, been able to, really remove myself from all of the day-to-day, all of the craziness and just take 5 minutes. It's not even taking a lot of time. It's been invaluable. So
yeah. And what can you describe some of the impact of that for you? Just taking 5 minutes. What does that really do?
Yeah, it's just, hitting a reset button, and it's applicable outside of work too, just with my kids
100%.
and having a crazy morning. And, it's like, okay, before I get started with work, I just need to take a beat and just, reset. So
Yep.
it's, yeah, it just helps me refocus, brings down that feeling of being overwhelmed and not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. But intentionally, right? Because I think a lot of times this is probably true for you before, certainly still true for me. For me, even now, it's like my instinct is like, okay, that was a really hard morning. I'm gonna go make myself a cup of tea, and I'm gonna probably scroll social media while I do that, and that's gonna be my reset. Quote, right? Like your body,
mhm.
you do take a reset in these moments when you have big feelings, but it oftentimes looks like I'm just going to mindlessly check my email or mindlessly scroll social media, or I'm going to go get a snack, or I'm going to do some of these things that because your body is telling you, I'm feeling something, right? I need a little space. And so we do it, but it's, it's not as effective. Like it's still, oftentimes you still get back to your computer and like, because you didn't actually deal with those emotions, you sort of just glossed over them or tried to tamper them down or stuff them down, however we want to describe it, right? You still have them. And so your work isn't really all that effective for a while. It might take 30 minutes, an hour or longer, depending on whatever the emotion is, for you to really get into the groove of your day versus like, no, I'm going to take a pause. It's going to be super intentional. I'm going to give some space for this. I'm going to like close my eyes. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to visualize the emotions, or I'm going to, visualize whatever it is, right? Visualize the presentation, but I'm going to give it some intentional space so that when I open my eyes and I open up my laptop or whatever it is, my work is going to be effective from almost the moment I start versus this very long lingering time that it might take for you to get into it. Does that resonate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think that word of intentionality is what was important for me. And I think that, like you had kind of said too, Katie, it's intentional at work and it's intentional at home. And so just being able to feel like I had a little bit more of that skill set to apply to both of those locations
Yeah.
really helps, I think, and it just helps reevaluate that level of success too, which is what you kind of alluded to. But like, what does a successful night look like with my kids? And being able to think about that intentionally, and what does success look like at work today, and being intentional about that. So I think it was, took a little bit of that, just doing the same thing every day out of it, and just made it more tangible in that way. And that has really resonated with me.
Yeah, getting out of like the rinse and repeat
Yeah.
experience that I think that we can really get into as working moms, right? Because we have to have such a highly structured home life. I can only imagine with 4 kids that it's like it has to be, right? Because there's so many activities, so many schedules, so many people eating food, liking different food. I mean, there's like so many things going on. And obviously for both Katie and I with 2, it still is highly structured. We know that our kids thrive in that and our families thrive in that. And then work has to be like, it's got to be this because I only have so much time and I got to be done at this time. And then there's really no wiggle room in some of that. And so it can feel that way after a while, right? Like it's like, wow, I'm just getting up and doing the same thing every day and having the same feelings, and like where's the joy? Where's the joy in this on some level? And so yeah, taking these little intentional pauses can bring so much intentionality and focus, and I think bring a lot of life back into our daily life, because we still need structure, right? That's probably not going away. We just want to feel differently about all of it. I love it. So I mean, now we're starting to think a little bit about tools. Like we've talked about like the compass and the values, identity, and purpose. We've talked a bit about kind of meditation or visualization. And just to highlight that one more time, like I'm not trained in meditation. Like you could actually go through lots of trainings on this and become somebody that really teaches and so forth. I've never studied meditation. I'm very similar. I came at it because a coach like introduced me to something very simple, and I found it to be really helpful to me. And just I can't sit there for a long period of time. I can't focus my mind that long. I've never practiced it for long periods of time. Even yoga is something that my mind is all over the place when I'm supposed to be really focusing. So even for me, the way I use it as a coach is very simple, very short little moments of kind of bringing focus. And just that can be so, so effective as we're talking about it, both from processing the emotions and then getting into intentional emotional spaces, both directions. So those are all tools that we've talked about that came out of coaching. I'm curious some of these other tools that have stuck with both of you and that stand out to you that maybe you're even today still using or kind of become a part of your daily life on some level.
A couple of things that I still use and that resonate with me. And I would say I'm not as diligent about it when we were in coaching, but still definitely tools in my toolbox are the daily work in the morning, making sure that I have time to kind of focus myself with the daily work. But then, like Katie had said too, that end of the day, celebrating, what we had done, what I accomplished that day, writing down the couple things that I need to do for the next day, and just being able to move on and have that successful transition to the other half of my life. I think those have been really helpful.
Yeah. So these bookended tools, kind of bookending the work day, I would assume on some level, right? So, I talk about the daily work on this podcast. I've talked about it a number of times, but from your, how would you describe it, Allie? What do you see as this, if you were to break it down for people to understand what I mean by the daily work, and why do we even do it daily?
Yeah. It really only takes 5 minutes, and I just keep an ongoing note on my computer. So I sit down at my computer and I open it up, and then it allows me to, I don't look at the day before, but it allows me to kind of give myself some positive affirmations going into the day. And it's what are the things that I am capable of today? What are those things that are kind of standing in my way, and how am I going to deal with those as those come up? And just kind of help set your mind right to say, I am capable of overcoming these things that could become hurdles for me today. And here's why, by just being those positive affirmations for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're setting the tone for the day, right? You're putting an intention into the day on some level. You can't, if you have proactive tools and exercises that you're doing on a regular basis, you aren't going to live in a reactive way, right? Because you're putting intention into it. And so inevitably that intention is going to create a different experience in your life rather than the kind of reactive kind of rinse and repeat life. So yeah, for sure. How about for you, Katie?
I'd say the pivot moment is something that I go to a lot. And this just goes back to those intrusive thoughts or, feelings of being overwhelmed, and recognizing that. And, then trying to determine how I will pivot away from that after, letting those emotions sit for a bit. But having some go-to things that I do, like the affirmations, or, getting away from my desk and, going on a walk, just to bring that reset into the day. And again, it's all about acknowledging those feelings and then, using them, in a good way, and then refocusing my mind.
Yeah. Now for you mentioned it earlier, you just recently got promoted, right? And that was something that congratulations again, very exciting for you. So, but one of the things that we kind of maybe held you back, whether you kind of consciously knew it or not, was this idea of that we generally have is when you move up the ladder, when you get promoted, it causes inevitably that means that you're going to have to work more hours, you're going to have to do more, right? Which is of course then there's only 24 hours in the day. So you're going to have to pull time away from other things. Usually that's our family and so that we struggle with that, right? And so I don't necessarily subscribe to that idea. That obviously we challenge that a lot in coaching, is this idea that just because you get promoted, you're going to work more hours. That's working more hours is on some level a choice. But I'm curious now, because you're just getting into this and everything that you learned in coaching, and you think about what it's going to take to be really successful at this next level. What's your perspective now of what it's going to take for you to be successful at this job, but remain balanced and to keep your family a priority and so forth? I'm curious your perspective on that now.
Yeah. So definitely implementing the tools that I learned through coaching. So going back to those visualization exercises, and also just reminding myself that I'm, giving my best self every day, and that's good enough. And I think Ali said that earlier, I'm good enough. What I do is good enough. And right now it's, one day at a time. Like, don't think, past where I am today. Because, there are increased feelings of overwhelmness, just with the added responsibility and the transition to, get out from underneath the work that I've been doing and how I'm going to balance the new work that I have now on my plate. But again, just those affirmations of I'm here for a reason, I'm in this role for a reason, and continuing to have that confidence in myself. And I don't have that all the time every day, but I would say have it more now than what I did previously, even, just not even being in this role, but just having that confidence that, I was promoted for the work that I've done. And yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear again, I'm kind of like we zoom out and we go, how do you move up? How do you take on more? How do you lean in and still keep your family a priority, still manage, balanced life? Big one is to believe in what you bring to the table every day, right? Like to have a positive talk track in your head that says I'm valuable, I deserve to be here, I'm good at this. And I love that that's one of the things that you're telling us, because what that means is that one of the things that that causes imbalance, right? That causes the experience of having to lean out or kind of not be able to lean in as much as we want, is that we have a negative talk track, and that actually brings us down more than we even realize. The amount of self-doubt and the amount of us telling ourselves, I'm not good enough, or I need to prove myself, or I'm not doing enough, or people are going to be disappointed. Like that talk track actually causes a lot of internal imbalance more than we ever realize has an effect. And then obviously that affects the way we use our time and how effective we are with our time and all the things, right? And so there's the power of just believing in yourself and having tools to remind yourself of that, because as both of you learned, that talk track ebbs and flows, right? Like every day you don't wake up and have this. Every day you're going to have thoughts that are inevitably kind of edge towards the negative side. That's not really the problem so much as you learn how to process those, let those go, and then introduce all of the positive ones every single day, right? It's improbable for us, or not improbable, it's impossible for us to really think that we can go through a whole day and not have some level of questioning in our mind. Like our brain does that. That's part of our brain's function, is to question what we're doing on some level. It's just how much weight are we going to give that every single day? And learning how to weigh those thoughts very differently is a big one. And then having, to your point, having some of those tools that are just going to help you stay in the successful mindset, positive, like see yourself as successful, and then give yourself the structure you need in your mind, right, to be successful at this level. So good. How about for you, Ali, as you think now, like you zoom out and say, what does it really take to be a working mom, to lean in and to actually experience balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you had said is it's not always going to be perfect, but kind of having more of that confidence of knowing, I go back to what I said initially, is that I'm enough and I'm doing enough, and knowing that is true also, and believing that, and having that internal confidence of knowing that I have that is true, and that is true for myself at work, and that is true for myself with my family, and just believing in that, I guess, and knowing that sometimes it might be more like 70 or 80%, but that is also still good enough, and knowing that is going to be the case.
Yeah. Which is kind of like saying 70 or 80% of your thoughts kind of align with the idea that I'm enough, which would mean like 20 or 30% of your thoughts don't. And you have to kind of redirect those thoughts and let those thoughts go. Like I love that. I love thinking about it from that perspective because it's true. You're not going to have 100% day where all of your thoughts are aligned on that direction. That's okay. It's okay, right? And that's why we have practices like the daily work, or we bookend it with like the work to home transition, because those are intentional times that we build in more enough thoughts and build in that positive self-talk. And that just brings the number up, right? I love it. Confidence is not the absence of self-doubt. That's what we like to think of it as. It's like when you never question yourself. That's what we think confidence is on some level. It's not that, actually. Confidence is being able to have self-doubt and not give it a lot of weight. And so you're able to move on and keep going and be effective and successful, even though those thoughts exist, right? So powerful. I love it. Well, if you were to say one thing to working moms out there that are wanting to lean into their career, keep their family first, balance it all, feel good about themselves and their life and their work and all the things, if you were to pick one thing to tell listeners out there, what would it be?
I would say that continue to have the confidence in what you bring to the table and what you have to offer. And just know that you can do whatever you put your mind to. That sounds cliche, but, I think that you can still have balance in your family, even if you are leaning in at work. And that's possible. And there are ways to do that.
So good. I love it. How about for you, Allie?
A lot of thoughts in my head on that one, but I would say, kind of like we were just talking about, that leaning in also doesn't mean that you have to do more. And so making that there are ways in that you can do what you need to do within the allotted amount of time that you have and still feel like you're giving it your all, that you're being successful, that you're leaning in. And so don't be afraid to do that when you need to, without having to sacrifice what you're also giving to your family. So
I love it. So good. Oh, Katie, Allie, thank you for being here. So fun to navigate this conversation together. It's fun to have a group conversation around it. And I think there's so much power in recognizing that a lot of other people's journeys are very similar to ours. And our talk tracks are very similar. We're not the only ones that have doubt or are struggling in these ways. And then to hear like the synergy around some of the tools and some of the experience in coaching is just really affirming as well. So I love it. Thank you for giving us your time and being here with us. And of course, working moms, if you are interested in changing your talk track and leaning in and being effective at your job without sacrificing your family, this is the exact work we do in coaching. I would love to guide you through that. And you can simply go to my website to get more information, RebeccaOlsonCoaching.com. All right, ladies, until next time, let's get to it. The next step to getting unstuck and having more days where you bounce out of bed feeling certain that you're doing exactly what you want to be doing, regaining your confidence, ending all of that negative chatter in your head, is to book a free breakthrough call. This is a strategy call where I will guide you through setting a vision for the life that you want to lead as a working mom, and then I'll lay out a plan for exactly how we will achieve that together through one-on-one coaching. You can book that call by going to RebeccaOlsonCoaching.com/book. All right, working moms, let's get to it.